Good morning, Bore da pawb. Lovely to see you here. Lovely to see those of you who are joining us online. And welcome to the second day of Wales Tech Week. Now, this fantastic bubble that we're in here, this stage, is all about net zero. And we hardly need reminding as to why, as societies across the world, we need to do something about climate change, hence why companies, countries, individuals have like their own net zero plans. You know, for instance, the CCC report this year talked about the UK's failure to act decisively during the energy crisis, and that had lost the UK's global leadership in terms of decarbonising, and the inaction was compounded by unnecessary investment in fossil fuels. And if you go further beyond that, then the United Nations is also coming up with some really scary facts and challenges. So think now about how we could do things differently. I think circularity, which is what we're talking about today, is perhaps one of the most interesting changes in thinking, both in terms of ways in which people can behave differently, but also people's and organizations' individual journeys towards being more sustainable. I mean, quite frankly, I think many of us have grown up in a world where something was made, you had raw materials, something is made, you used it for a bit and you chucked it away. And obviously, we're on a fast track away from that. Well, I have with me 4 fantastic guests to talk about all of this. Some of them have been doing this kind of thing for some time, others less so. And we'll be hearing about their experiences in terms of what they've done and what they're hoping to do on the way. So let me welcome, first of all, Inga Doak, who's for the head of sustainability at the Royal Mint, David Jones, who's co-founder of Litter Lotto, Gareth Banks, who's head of sustainability at Orangebox, and Anna Matic, director of digital development at Scott Brownrigg. Let's give them a nice warm welcome to this room here. And Anna, I'm going to start with you as I move from here to there. Anna, come on, let's talk about, I've given a very simple description of what circularity is, but hardly, just rather what the other way is. Tell us why circularity is important and what it means to you. It's on. I'll do this one.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry about microphone. So good morning and really lovely to be here. This is a tech show, so I will cover circularity and tech. I'm an architect. I work for Scott Brownrigg Architects. We have an office in Cardiff as well as London and Guildford. And we do a lot of different sectors in terms of construction. So our knowledge and our kind of view of what's happening in the kind of world of construction comes from actually working on lots of different types of construction. Generally in construction, the circularity means some key things which actually cover probably circularity generally in economy, and that's reducing waste, encouraging natural resources, encouraging reuse as much as possible of anything. We can be reusing entire buildings, or we can be reusing elements of buildings, or we can be reusing simple materials. The offset of reusing and the cost of reusing are usually the trick that has to kind of, sorts itself out in terms of it being viable. In construction, the circularity also means creating sustainable communities, because in a way, constructing something that will not actually generate the new life for that community is pointless. Therefore, it's not even just about materials, it's about assessing the need to construct something or to repair something. So, as architects, the least likely question the architect should ask their client is, do you really need to build something? Yeah, because then we're talking ourselves out of a job. But in fact, we're moving to the world where that is the right question. That should be the first question. So we should be asking our clients, first of all, do you need to build? If you need to build, yes. Can you actually retrofit something that already exists? If you can, is it true that it's going to be more expensive? Because that's usually the stuff that stops you from doing it. and then start on the journey of actually designing something. So we really try to work like that. Of course, it's, we're all in a commercial, survival business, so it's not always easy. But as architects, we've committed to several pledges towards zero carbon. So it is our job to start the projects in a way that we can actually help our clients make the right decisions. In terms of architecture, the circularity decisions, so the decisions to reduce future carbon and future use of energy, come very early in the design. Where you put your glazing, where you orientate your building, how low it is in the ground, all of those things, they're massive decisions. You cannot make them later on. So you have to make them early in the stage of the design, and then monitor the progress of the design.
Okay, so that then affect where, so you might have, like you're talking about glazing, you might have windows to the south, so you're making the use of the sun, and you might have things that
you might not have the windows at the south,
or you might not have them in the south, depending on what part of the world. You can tell we live in Wales, can't you, really? Where we want the sun. Other parts don't want the sun.
Yeah, precisely.
So it's things like that. It's really thinking massively holistically.
Massively holistically, and literally kind of stepping back, thinking before you do. Yeah, because at the moment we're still obsessed with size and with quantity, and we're building a lot. But actually, what we need to do is step back, really think about things, and actually do kind of very, very gentle, touch the earth gently, as one beautiful architect said a long time ago.
And while we're sitting in Wales, something that we're quite famous for is our rain. So would it also take into account what the building might do in terms of water, in terms of collection,
Absolutely.
in terms of not a tarmac car park, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Biodiversity, encouraging the water to go away slowly and in a kind of measured way, all of those measures. But the thing is, you see, those things are already in place. We need to start doing better. And in terms of measuring carbon, we now have a whole plethora of digital tools. I'm not going to go on about digital tools too much. We are at a tech show, but I just wanted to mention a few. So generally what's developing much better is now being able to measure what the use of carbon will be in the embodied carbon of the building and also in the operational carbon of the building.
So that's where tech is absolutely vital.
That's
those
where tech is
calculations
vital.
are right. Okay, well, I've had the privilege, which some of you might or might not know, to be a journalist. I was for about 12 years, and it meant I got a sneaky insight into a lot of companies because I was an economics correspondent. And one of the companies in Wales I got very excited about 13 years ago was Orangebox, which is Gareth's company. Do you want to pass that along, Anna? Because Orangebox was the first kind of company making stuff that I knew of that had a circular approach. You were well ahead of the game, weren't you? They make office chairs. You might not think office chairs are necessarily the coolest climate change answer, but come on, tell us, why don't you were there at the beginning, weren't you?
Well,
on an old coal mine. I mean, it was a journalist's dream, but you were way ahead in terms of thinking about the way to do stuff.
yeah, well, and I think one of the lovely things about designing for the environment, as we might call it today, before sustainability was as high profile as it was today, it also makes great economic sense. So for us at Orangebox, it was partly because our design team was really passionate about sustainably led design, but it also makes complete economic sense, of course, to use fewer materials to do the same kind of job.
Okay, so help us though, because not everyone's had my lucky experience of going around your factory at various stages. Tell us what you make and why, or go back to the early days because you make lots of things now. Tell us what you make and why having a circular approach in practical terms was different.
Yeah, so we make office furniture, contemporary design-led office furniture, which is 99% of it is manufactured here in Wales. And we have a very Wales-centric supply chain as well, which is great. And we really like the circular economy as an approach, obviously because of all the environmental benefits, but of course, from a business perspective, it helps strengthen your links with your customers. If you're designing something with a view to essentially to trying to get it back, however long down the line, 10, 15 years, you're having that conversation again with that customer and hopefully selling them something else or remanufacturing the same item back again.
Okay, so has anyone here got an Orangebox office chair? Have you got normal office chairs? Anyone got a normal office chair? Right. Normal office chairs, most of them end up in landfill, don't they? Or they get burnt. So you're being very modest. Spell out what is different with your office chair to normal office chairs.
Well, coming back to Anna's...
If I broke a wheel. Come on, if I broke a wheel.
Well, coming back to Anna's point, it is all about design, isn't it? In order for the circular economy to actually work, it has to start with design. Because whether it's a chair or a building, if it's not designed in up front, it's so much harder to be able to keep those materials alive for as long as possible. I mean, that's always our aim, whether we're designing a kind of an operator's chair, a task chair, the sort of chair you might sit on in front of a computer, or collaborative soft seating, or acoustic room pods. You know, these are all different kind of product platforms that we manufacture, but we need to apply exactly the same thinking across the board. How can we design that so that 10 years down the line, we can get it back and we can remanufacture it. We can give it a second life and possibly even a third life. That's our aim, is to keep those materials at the highest quality for the longest time possible.
And when you talk about the relationship with your customer, I mean, to keep it very basic, if I broke a wheel on an Orangebox chair, you would repair the wheel, wouldn't you, rather than making me buy a new one?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Design for a second life is, of course, critically important, but design for service through that chair or that table's first life is crucially important as well. So we've got a service centre, we've got a service function. So we will come out and we'll fix something at site in the first instance if we can, to save bringing it back.
And that idea of service, so you kind of have it for a bit and it gets done up again, is coming in more, isn't it? Carpet tiles like this are now being reused and serviced from a company in the Rhondda, and they do that kind of stuff quite a lot in Holland, don't they? Isn't Philips now sees itself as a lighting producer rather than a light bulb producer? So it's a big change.
Absolutely. We're always looking for how we can apply new business models like that. Product service systems, of course, we're seeing more and more examples. It's a bit of a challenge for us at Orangebox because our normal route to market is through a network of dealers. So we're not usually selling direct to the end customer, but certainly furniture as a service is something that we're looking into for the future very heavily at the moment.
Which is really interesting. And of course, River Simple in Mid Wales is talking about cars as a service rather than one that you would own and then chuck out away. So what about the stuff we do chuck? This is where you come in, David, don't you? Because your company, your co-founder of Litter Lotto, is quite a new company, isn't it? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we launched just over 2 years ago. And so basically what we do is at its core, an app that gives people an incentive to get rid of litter. So to put it simply, you take a photo and you put your litter in the bin and get entered into a prize draw to win cash prizes, other prizes, and various different types of prizes. And the way we do that is working with brands, with local authorities, with corporates big and small, and charities to basically raise awareness about the issue in the first instance, but also make sure people put their waste in the right places, not just on the side of the road, in a river, or contaminating recycling at home as well.
So how does that actually work for, say, an individual? Can you describe how an individual would do that?
Yeah, sure. So the way it works is it's basically a sort of a three-step thing. Is you download the app, you take a photo when you put your litter in the bin, and
any litter, even just like a small amount, one bottle.
Yeah. That's the perfect kind of litter that we've had people using. So we've had just over 10 million pieces of litter bins on the app since we launched in various different countries around the world. And we've given over £400,000 away in cash prizes, as well as other prizes as well. You know, we've got people planting thousands of trees in our new feature that we've launched, and lots of different things like that as well.
So what made you have the motivation to do that? What was it that made you think, come on, we've got to do something here?
So it was the early days of COVID, and me and my co-founder got together, and he'd done things in the past about incentivization, and we both read the same article on the same day about the impact of litter, especially during COVID. So we said, look, let's get our heads together and find a solution for this. And that's
that was it.
Yeah, so we launched in sort of towards the end of 2021. in a pilot in Denmark. And then we launched in the UK then with, it was great to get McDonald's on board as our exclusive brand partner at the time across the UK. And now we're launching with lots of other brands. We've got KFC in South Africa. We've got other brands involved, both local, national and global brands. We're working with Keep Scotland Beautiful in Scotland. We're working with a few different councils, Bristol Sport and lots of other things to really try and reduce the impact of litter as much as possible, and all different types.
And Inga, the Royal Mint, you don't think about people throwing things away with the Royal Mint, but you are doing some really exciting things now in terms of circularity and reuse. Explain it in a way that we might understand.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And hello to everyone in the room this morning and those watching online. So we would certainly hope that the products that we put on the market and sell to our customers don't end up in the bin. So you may know us for the circulating coins in your pockets, but not just here in the UK. We mint coins for over 30 countries around the world. But we also create beautifully crafted collectible and investment and jewelry pieces for our customers to essentially to cherish and to hold on to for as long as possible. So our business model doesn't I guess, I don't know if rely is the right word, but doesn't rely on customers needing to dispose of our products. We can't build circularity in a particularly strong way in that respect. So what we're looking at is the materials going into the products that we're making and how we can adopt circular principles in that respect. So we are looking more and more at the source of our precious metals and the other materials that we use. And you know, coming back to the title of this discussion, can Wales be a pioneer in the circular economy? Well, later this year, we're launching a world first facility based on the particular chemistry that we're using to recover initially gold, but also other materials within the printed circuit boards of laptops and mobile phones. And we're going to use that gold, and we are currently using that gold initially in our first ever luxury jewelry line. And we're creating this concept of a wearable, collectible asset. So our customers can own something that is beautifully crafted, that also has value, but is also being made in as sustainable way as possible. And parallel to that, we've also partnered with a company in the Midlands, and some of the silver in those jewelry items have been recovered from disused medical x-rays. So there's these two really interesting proof points that we're developing around adopting circular economy principles in the materials that we're sourcing to make our products.
Now, I'm quite interested in very interested in how you got to that position, because, you know, some people enter a circular approach to just waste less, you know, pure bottom line kind of thinking. You know, this is something that we've got that has value. Other people enter it for more kind of global sustainability reasons. What got the Royal Mint thinking in these terms, in these very different terms?
Yeah, I think it was a collection of drivers for us that were all happening around the same time. So we recognize that the way people spend is changing. So we couldn't solely rely on our circulating coin business. While it's still a very important part of our business, we had to understand different avenues to market. And so we went through a very strong sort of business transformation process, and we launched a 5-year strategy just 2 years ago where we were going to continue our circulating coin business, really establish our existing businesses around commemorative coins and investment products, but then sort of look at what we're calling the new ventures. And that's what really drove the e-waste recovery, the precious metals recovery plant, and the luxury jewelry line. And in parallel with that, there was definitely a recognition that in order to be a modern, relevant business, whether here in Wales or across our international market, we needed to acknowledge and respond to the environmental and climate crisis that we're all experiencing. And so that net zero circular economy piece was absolutely part of that decision making.
And where do you get the circuit boards from? Like anyone or everyone and anyone? And how do you do that?
Yeah, so I have a team of colleagues who are answering that very question. We're really trying hard to source our circuit boards within the UK because that's a really important part for us of demonstrating a solution for e-waste in the UK. So we're trying to source those printed circuit boards within the UK first and foremost. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we're able to source pretty much most of that feedstock from here in the UK.
And before, presumably it was just, what happened to it before? Incinerated? Who knows?
Yeah, so at best...
Yeah, would it be incinerated, Anna?
No, it was sent to China.
Sent to China. Okay, fine. So we're making money for Wales rather than going to China. That's a good thing, yeah? Yeah. So I think, the question is, what can we learn from you guys, really? And can Wales be a pioneer? You're at the sort of new stage of being pioneering now. Do you feel others will follow you?
Gosh, I hope so.
I mean, not to do exactly the same thing, but to just think, right, okay, what is the waste that I have in my industry? What can I do with that waste?
Yeah, and I think I think adopting circular economy principles and all of us here on the panel will appreciate this. In order for businesses to survive, so we've been around as the Royal Mint for 1,100 years. That's a pretty phenomenal legacy. But if we want to continue to exist for another 1,100 years, we have to constantly adapt and evolve as a business, just like every other business out there. And I think now we are, we were talking earlier about how really now it's not too late to act, but we need to start acting now. Gareth mentioned earlier, we've got 10 to 15 years to really get our stuff together. And so when businesses are evolving to be commercially viable, they also need to be evolving in terms of those external influences around supply chain resilience, urbanization, customer need, and that all needs to be part of the business adaptation model.
And Gareth, do you think, can you pass that along? Gareth, do you think that people are following you? I mean, can Wales be a pioneer? We could say your company has been a pioneer, you're a new pioneer, you're all doing various different things. But can Wales actually lead the way? Because to be honest, you've got to have serious policy buy-in. Do people get it? Are they following you?
Well, I would very much hope so. I mean, this is why I'm here today, because this is an important message. And anybody that believes in net zero is usually very committed to kind of sharing these all the fantastic things that are going on. But my concern is that it does take time. I mean, we haven't
got much time there.
We haven't got. No, the clock is very much ticking on this.
Yeah.
And my own observation from this, the very first product line that we really paid some close attention to in terms of its optimization for circularity, we launched that chair in 2009. It's a task chair called ARA. We used a design protocol called Cradle to Cradle, which was very useful for us at the time. And we've just started getting those chairs back now. And so we now have a service called Remade by Orangebox, which is a conversation to have with our customers. When they come to us and saying, we've got a project on, we need some new furniture, we would sooner talk to them about the furniture that they've already got rather than selling them shiny and new. If Orangebox is serious about net zero, then that has to be a huge part of our future.
Okay, so I totally get that, and I feel your passion. But let's say someone more cynical, I'm not suggesting anyone in the audience is cynical, but someone else might say, but hang on a minute, if you sold them a new chair, you'd make more money.
That's not always the case. I mean, I'm involved.
You can actually, even if you wanted to just do it for the money and never mind the planet, this is a good way of making money.
I'm involved in, all I can observe is on the stuff that I know about. And I'm involved in a project at the moment. One of our big corporate customers, because we sell mostly to business, and we've got a lot of big corporate customers. So a big insurance firm that has many thousands of that particular chair that I've just talked about, ARA, and they're having to make this decision at this point in time. What do we do with those? Now we want to regenerate some of their spaces. So they've got this decision to make. Do they allow us to remanufacture their existing chairs, or do they buy new from us, or do they buy new from somebody else?
And one of the things they'll be thinking about is their brand.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
actually their brand value will go up if they reuse them and tell the world.
Yes, absolutely. And looking at the financial value and looking at the carbon value, they're much better off with allowing us to remanufacture the chairs that they've already got.
Yeah, and Anna, from the construction sector point of view, you were talking about the kind of designs and stuff like that that you guys are involved in. There's always a kind of short-term, cheaper option, isn't there? Do you think the tide's changing, though?
Well, Gareth just touched on two incredibly important things. One is legislation. So the further the legislation goes to encourage the right choices, the more we're going to start seeing that becoming, let's say, a trend or a fashion. Then that leads the cultural thinking. Yeah. So at the moment, if you say to somebody, "I'm going to give you a refurbished Mac or something," they'll be like, "Okay, yeah, is that going to cost me less?" But if you go to a client and you say, "We're going to give you this amazing existing building retrofitted to have a fantastic new level of, U value, access, everything that it needs to have for the modern kind of expectations, but reusing and retrofitting into an existing fabric," that's what we should be encouraging. And I think Wales is absolutely a perfect ground for that.
Yeah, because the Welsh Government does have some power in this sphere, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
In terms of planning and in terms of housing quality and stuff like that. Does it have enough power?
Welsh Government has enough power. They just need to start putting this into Gareth
is itching.
Well, I've been at a couple of events recently with Derek Walker, and I know he's here.
Future Generations Commissioner.
Yeah. So we have some of the best legislation in the world, the Future Generations Act here in Wales. But is there a bit of a disconnect between its application yet? So, again, coming back to legislation, the one thing that moves businesses, and business has got a huge power for good, but the thing that moves business is a bit of regulatory pressure or a bit of legislation.
Okay, so if you ruled the world, or rather ruled Wales, what would you get the policymakers to do? And you can tell me what you do if you ruled the UK as well, if you like.
Well, I can only observe that where we've acted the quickest is where there is a bit of pressure, like the plastic packaging tax, which has been rolled out over the last couple of years. Straight away, across the board, you've got people, because it's an economic carrot. Yeah. We need to see, and this is a personal reflection, I think we need to see more carbon taxes more quickly. Business is a power for good. Normally, it needs a bit of a nudge. I think on this topic, the clock is ticking. It needs a big hard shove in the back. So.
Yeah. And David, so what happens then to your litter? So I've got a plastic bottle that I take a photo of and put within your system. What happens then? Are those plastic bottles reused directly, or what happens?
So version 1 of the app was literally encouraging people to put litter in the bin instead of the floor. Any bin on the street.
Yeah, because there was an issue about some fast food and rubbish, wasn't there?
Exactly, and also using Cardiff as an example, the vast majority of bins in Cardiff that are branded as recycling actually end up in landfill anyway. I actually walked past a truck emptying both bins with recycling on one side and landfill on the other side. And they both went into the same skip in the back of his thing.
Because we behave badly and put the wrong things in.
Because we behave badly and put things in the wrong side. And from our perspective, that's a real big problem for contamination and things both at home and away. So now, as we develop the product, we've actually just launched features that encourage people to learn more about where their waste should be out and about in venues just like this. And also We're also working with councils and local authorities around the UK to educate people and incentivize people to reduce contamination and recycle at home as well. And just to add on to what you were talking about before, I think that in order for Wales to be a pioneer in the circular economy, we need those pioneers. So encouraging people to start businesses that have those impacts is really important, whether in Wales, the UK, or around the world.
So if you ruled the world, would you give extra support if somebody had a circular approach, or certainly if they had virtually no waste? That kind of thing?
Exactly, but from an impact perspective, lots of different businesses can have an impact both directly and indirectly. So beyond just the circular and waste kind of thing, there's lots of impacts businesses can have, and encouraging that is really important, I think.
And Inga, people know about the Royal Mint around the world, don't they? So presumably your influence power and the way that Wales is then seen within that is really tangible, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we're a very iconic brand, that's for sure, and we're trying to leverage that. Particularly, just one example I will give is, and I can't reveal too many details, but so we partnered with a clean tech startup in Canada called Exia to use the chemistry that they've developed to recover the gold from the printed circuit boards that I mentioned earlier. And while we are extremely proud that we're launching that for the first ever time here in Wales, we're also looking at how we can deploy that technology with partners around the world, essentially, because if we can demonstrate a better way of managing one of the world's fastest growing waste streams, then why would we want to keep that just here? Let's deploy that across as many locations as we possibly can. So I guess that's just one example where we're trying to be a leader here in Wales and as part of the Welsh economy, but also deploying that more broadly as well.
And how are you getting the message over to businesses to give you their electrical waste, let's say?
Yeah,
or do you buy it? I mean, I don't know.
There is definitely a commercial arrangement. That is the reality that we live in. But we're having, I guess, the advantage of a lot of the conversations we're having is that we're talking to partners who are operating and understand the similar non-commercial challenges facing the world. So the partners that we're speaking to that come from a range of different industries, they want to be doing something different with their electronic waste, provided we can make that happen in a commercially viable way. And that's exactly what we're doing.
And in fact, of course, companies, now it started really, hasn't it, with very big companies, but the regulation is changing so that from our big companies, our banks, our finance houses, and then through the economy, they have to actually report on their impact on the planet as well as their profit and loss, don't they? Do you think that is going to be a bit of a game changer? Because when people start calculating their impact and showing it to investors and stakeholders, they'll realize they need to change.
Yeah, so that's a really relevant question, because at this exact moment in time, there is legislation coming through that has come through and is coming through over the next 1 to 2 years that is requiring organizations to report on their sustainability credentials. So whether it's to do with their climate disclosures or their organizational carbon footprint, and more broadly what they're doing across the ESG space. So even the social credentials of their business. Legislation is coming through that is going to require organizations to report that.
And it's coming through quite quickly, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, Anna and Gareth, I mean, I'm interested in when you tender for work, Anna, as an organization, are they now putting in the spec, we want you to have minimal carbon impact, or we want
Absolutely.
it to be, is that kind of thing is, and then it becomes a business issue rather than, as well as a sustainability issue, rather than just one of them.
Yeah, I mean, construction industry is also led by other targets. So you might have a requirement for BREEAM Excellent from your client. You might
So
have
that's how sustainable the operating of the
local
building
authorities
is.
will have a specific level of carbon reduction that you have to achieve. Public sector buildings have an added percentage, usually about 20% on top of the current building regs that you have to achieve. So it depends which one of those things will lead. We will have to then set out the project to fit that. But yes, as an organization, we also have our own targets and as I mentioned earlier, pledges. So we pledged to be zero carbon by 2030.
And so some people will choose you because of that.
Big deal. And, and it's going to be tough to achieve, basically.
So if I was an organization and my shareholders wanted me to behave well, or if I needed money from a bank that was only going to invest if I behaved well, I would choose you because you will give me a building which will make me actually please my investors
because
more.
we can demonstrate that we will follow the process. However, it will come down to the budget, I'm afraid.
It's really
I don't want to be cynical, but
no. It obviously depends on each
it's
one.
the way it is, and I think that's why my interest is in the early stage design, where you can influence the big decisions, understanding the client and the stakeholders, wider stakeholders.
Okay.
That are involved.
I'm going to bring in any of you that want to join this conversation in a minute, but let's hear from Gareth now. Gareth, you were itching again.
Yeah, I just wanted to drag this back to the question about Wales and whether this is whether Wales is perfectly placed. And a couple of observations about waste in Wales as well, because although waste is only one kind of slither of this, I mean, I think the bigger question is about the resources, because I guess we've described waste as resources that we no longer see any value in. So I'm more interested in the resources that still have value. But waste, I mean, certainly Wales has always been ahead of the curve in domestic recycling, and we're famously third in the world, I think, behind, is it Germany and Korea? You probably know this, don't you? But, the work of Andy Rees and fantastic. The business-related recycling legislation is changing next year, of course, which is another great step forward because it will push businesses in the same direction. So I think that's fantastic. And the other thing, regulatory, we might observe things like public purchasing notes, or PPN. There's this thing called PPN 0621, which sounds pretty boring, but it means that the public sector, and Orangebox has worked with lots of public sector organisations that are leaning into the circular economy as well. Because PPN 0621 says for big government contracts that you have to have a plan. You have to have a net zero plan in place. So I think there's loads of bits of legislation in Wales specifically that are really helping.
Yeah, and let's not discuss legislation in the UK at this point because it's slightly less exciting, let's say. Anyone want to join in and ask a question or tell me about your experience? Can we have a microphone to this lady here, please? You can have mine if you like, we'll share. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kate Remington from Technology Connected, which is the organiser of the event. But the reason I'm asking a question is because tomorrow we've got the Talent for Tech event, which is about skills. And what I'm hearing walking around the floor is that everyone wants to address the skills shortage. And I just wondered what skills you need in the field you're working in terms of sustainability tech. So what's occurred to me from listening to you is things in materials technology, metal recovery, design tech, etc.
Yeah, so we're an engineering, manufacturing, materials type organization. So we have the advantage of having some fantastic staff that already have those skill sets. So chemists, engineers, designers, for instance. While we obviously need to continue to recruit more of that skill set. We're in the fortunate position of having a lot of the skills we need in-house already. But on the skills piece, something that we're doing that I think is really interesting, which is another thing that's linked to how we're transforming as a business, is that we're reskilling existing staff away from some aspects of the business, like the circulating coin business, for instance, and into our new businesses like the precious metals recovery plan. And that's another part key in our transformation, is re-skilling staff as much as bringing new skilled staff in.
If I could just add something quickly as well. So, what we've found is that across all different types of skills, well, obviously with us it's mainly technical, we're a team of 18 people now, and the biggest draw for us is being someone who's working for a company that does have a positive impact in some way. So that's a big draw for us.
That's good to hear. Now, in terms of reskilling people, first, you have retired miners, or you did have a few years ago, working in Orangebox in a circular environment. So you've experienced changing people's work life totally. Is that relative? You can do it, can't you? Because a lot of people, I think, would think you can't change people's industry that radically.
Our challenge around skills is at both ends of the spectrum, the highly tech end of the spectrum, but also almost back to the craft end. In order to make really good quality furniture, most of what we do has some sort of upholstery on it somewhere. So a lot of the skills that we require are actually kind of visceral, can you make stuff skills. So upholsterers, sewers, and we find that a real challenge. So we've had to kind of build our own a training academy, which is part of what we do. So up at our Hengoed factory, we've got a constant rolling program of training 5 sewers and 5 upholsterers. They spend a year kind of training, and then a year later they hit our shop floor. So that's always a really important part of our skills development.
Are they hard to get?
Yes, increasingly so. Increasingly so. Especially, who wants to be an upholsterer or a sewer? It's not that sexy these days, but no. I mean, there is something amazing about having that ability to make, and the maker movement is seeing a huge resurgence. So I'm like you, I find it tremendously exciting to actually make stuff. But at the other end, I mean, we use a lot of kind of more technical skills, things that help us dematerialize what we do. So in order to use as little material as possible, we need quite sophisticated software like finite element analysis, which helps us make things as strong as they possibly can be, but with as little material. So it helps us simulate the stresses and strains. So at the tech end, that's also a challenge as well.
Before I go to Anna, any other questions? Because I don't want anyone to leave feeling they didn't, or any other viewpoints of what you've tried in your companies. Oh, lady there. And while you go over there, Anna, what about your sector and skills? Is it tricky finding the kind of people?
I'm just going to touch on tech because we are at a tech show. The construction industry and architecture itself are moving fast towards basically digital twin technology. We have a digital twin unit, so I know quite a lot about it. In the meantime, the public sector bodies who are approving our work are in the kind of Excel world of development. So there's a huge leap to happen across the planning departments and the building control departments, and that will be pushed partly by the new Building Safety Act. On the other hand, in terms of upskilling within the industry, actually contractors are leading the way, so they are incredibly already skilled, and architects as well, and engineers. But I would suggest that it would be fantastic to encourage reskilling people as well as upskilling people. So not discarding the amazing craftsmen and people who have technology and technical skills at their fingertips. So bring them into tech. That's my message from today.
Thank you. Gareth, I think you said it's all about design. I work for the Design Commission for Wales. That's great news to hear, but probably more in Anna's realm than your realm. But I was going to ask about skills as well, but I think how do we progress to use those skills and use that understanding to make reuse the norm rather than the exception? And is there more that could be done to, for example, reusing building materials at a national level and making that more normal rather than sourcing new raw materials?
Well, I'll be very brief because I think this is more in Anna's wheelhouse. But Yes, I mean the reuse of materials is a big education piece, isn't it? And I'm kind of confident and hopeful, optimistic that the generations coming behind us, it will, it's so embedded in education now. I hope that it's almost taken as read, and we won't see any more generations that treat materials in the way that we have.
And the Royal Mint making jewellery, that's a different way of thinking things, isn't it? Anna, do you want to?
Just briefly, we're partnering with a number of organizations who are looking at designing and design of materials so that they are reusable, and design of buildings so that they are reusable. The issue is actually achieving the systems. So mechanical systems are actually a bigger problem than building materials at the moment. Mechanical systems are incredibly intense nowadays. Buildings are like machines, and those are not so recyclable at the moment. So I think buildings will gradually move into the older crafts. There'll be more timber, there'll be more brick and stone. Lots of architects are moving back towards those older materials. So in a way that's easier to think about, but the mechanical systems are still a very big issue. So yet to come.
And it's
Thank you. Great question.
Nice question. And it's not just in big fancy buildings, is it? It's social housing, particularly in Wales.
Absolutely.
It's really changing.
In fact, the fancy buildings are easier to deal with because the budgets are larger and the clients are usually already quite forward-looking. Housing, however, is incredibly difficult to deal with. Existing stock as well as the new stock, because the margins are very low, and the developers are looking to actually obviously get as much as possible for the budgets. So, yes. Not such a positive note to end on.
Okay, we'll give a positive note to end on from Inga. I mean, Inga, if you can be making jewellery out of electrical waste, if you like, then that shows that anyone can rethink and analyse their raw materials or waste materials and do new stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why I really love the direction that the Royal Mint is moving towards is that we're taking 1,000 years of craftsmanship knowledge and heritage crafts, a bit like Gareth mentioned, skills that aren't as popular as they used to be. So we're taking 1,000 years of that craftsmanship and we're teaming that up with world-first modern technology. And I just think that's such a wonderful relationship.
Fantastic. What a brilliant, optimistic end. Thank you very much to Inga, to David, to Gareth, and to Anna, and to you. Thank you.